The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen.
You're now about to witness the truth.
1, 2.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is today. Today is Wednesday, I believe, December 7th, 2016. I should know this date for many reasons, not just because of Pearl Harbor, but obviously because of Pearl Harbor, but also quiet as it's kept. Should I drop this big secret? So quiet, I think it's pretty much out there amongst my family. I think my family mostly knows. So my wife and I actually eloped before we had this big church marriage ceremony. So we have 2 anniversaries. Our eloping anniversary is December 7th, 2009, and our actual anniversary that we had all of our family and stuff. So I should know today's date very well. Love you, babe. I'll see you in a few. So anyway, welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am, of course, your host, Benjamin Dixon. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. A lot happening in the news. A lot to cover. I don't even know where to start. So let me just start in the order that I have things on my screen. Donald Trump is we have a long way to go. We have a very long way to go with Donald Trump. Mainly, you know what? I really need to check something out here. 1 second. Guys, I want you to be patient with me. I want to check something out here. Allow me to do something I just want to double check something for my radio audience. Okay. All right. Looked like they didn't have any audio, but your audio is good. Okay. So starting that over again, Donald Trump is showing the extent to which he does not really care about what normal human beings think or normal human beings care about, because he has picked a person who is not only a climate change denier, but a person who is actively fighting against the EPA to serve as the director of the EPA. Scott Pruitt, I believe, is his name, and his picture is on your screen. Donald Trump has essentially, well, it hasn't been officially announced. To be fair to Donald Trump, it hasn't, at least as I was gathering information on this, it wasn't officially announced, but it has been alluded to by all the major news media outlets. And so it looks like Scott Pruitt, who is currently the Attorney General of Oklahoma, is going to be his pick to lead the EPA. He's involved in several court disputes with the Obama administration regarding the EPA's regulation of oil and gas. He's spoken out vehemently against the EPA. He is a climate denier. And so Donald Trump said, this is the perfect guy to lead the EPA. Now, this is in the backdrop of 2 things, right? He met with Al Gore. And if there's anyone there's a lot of stuff that Al Gore did wrong, in my opinion, in my estimation. But what Al Gore got right was his vigorous approach towards climate change. And so Donald Trump met with Al Gore, and, we don't know. I guess maybe it was for, who knows what the hell it was for. Maybe it was just for shits and giggles, because you can't meet with Al Gore and throw a signal to the world that maybe I'm going to be reasonable on climate change, only to turn around and pick Scott Pruitt, who is just essentially the worst person he could possibly pick to serve, to lead the EPA. Not only that, this comes in the backdrop of Ivanka Trump stating that one of her signature issues while she's in the White House is going to be, not in the White House, but in proximity to the White House, will be climate change. Mind you, she didn't really state whether or not she was going to be on the side of science and climate change, or was she going to take up the charge to fight back against the science of climate change? They didn't really distinguish that, but you could almost assume, if it wasn't the Trumps, that a person who says that they're going to take up the mantle of climate change, they're going to fight on behalf of halting climate change. But the Trumps are not without surprise. So in the backdrop of him meeting with Al Gore and Ivanka saying that she's going to focus on climate change, he picked Scott Pruitt, who is involved in the coalition of states attorneys who are suing the EPA's Clean Power Plan. Say that 3 times fast. The EPA's Clean Power Plan. This is one of Obama's signature policies that he set forth aimed at reducing the U.S. greenhouse gas emissions from the electricity sector. Scott Pruitt is on record of attacking the environmental protection that the EPA is charged with enforcing. Right. So he's on record for opposing what the EPA actually does. And this is who Donald Trump has picked to lead the EPA. Now, I'm not saying this out of shock. I'm not saying this out of alarm. I'm just reporting the news, to be honest with you, because I fully expect Donald Trump to subvert every positive step that we've made in the right direction. I made that estimation during the primaries, during the general election, and I had under no disillusionment, under no illusion that Donald Trump was going to be the lesser of two evils or even an equal evil. Donald Trump is going to show exactly how much of a greater evil he is on climate change, on the environment in general, on tax policy, on regulations, on social issues. He is picking a cabinet that's going to do exactly what he talked about during the campaign, and he is going to show you exactly how how much of a greater evil he really is. But not here to lecture just yet. In a few minutes, I'll lecture. Pruitt also boasts of being a leading advocate against the EPA's activist agenda. This is a quote. This is a quote from his LinkedIn page. Like, this imbecile is proud to be a know-nothing, right? He's proud to be a science denier. He's proud to wear the badge of imbecile. And this is going to lead our EPA. There's a place. I mean, there's clearly a place for dumb people in America, and that's in Donald Trump's administration. Somebody tweet me on that so I can retweet. There is a place for dumb people in America, and they belong in the Donald Trump administration, or at least they're gravitating towards the Donald Trump administration. Because who puts it out? I mean, clearly, Republicans. They put it out there that they are, they try to make this a wash. They try to make climate change a debate as if there's two sides of the equation. And by doing that, they can stifle or at least delay any progress that would hinder or challenge or threaten the energy sector's profits. That's it. That's all. They're 100%. I'm sure all of them are 100% fully aware of what's happening in our climate. They don't give a shit. They don't care because they figure like Gary Johnson figures that, global warming, well, the sun is going to expand in its red giant phase and encompass the planet. So that's global warming. So anyway, this is like the third of Trump's appointees who have like serious philosophical differences with the mission of the agency that they've been appointed to. Right? So Scott Pruitt is a climate denier who's at war with the EPA. He is our pick for the EPA. Ben Carson, who's been named to be the to head the Department of Housing and Urban Development, has expressed his his deep aversion to the social safety net programs, his aversion to fair housing, initiatives. He's the perfect person to undermine everything that HUD does. And you can't call him a racist for putting, what percentage of African Americans are living in housing projects. I got quite a few cousins. Right? So you put a black person over it, then you can get away with anything, right? Just gut the whole thing, because you can't ever say that they're racist because they're black. The greatest tools of white supremacy, the greatest tools of the oppressor has always been people with marginalized identities. Whether they're black, whether they're LGBTQ, they are the most efficient tool of the oppressor. So Donald Trump picks somebody who clearly hates and has animosity towards the safety net and housing projects, not because he looks at them and says, we need to do this better. He looks at this and says, put them fuckers on the street. So that's two. And then Betsy DeVos, or DeVos, sounds a lot like Devros. Points if you already know who Devros is. Named to be the education secretary. She has a passion for private school vouchers and for charter school vouchers. And she has made a career of undercutting the public school system. So who better to put over the Department of Education than somebody who wants to gut the Department of Education? I am going to lecture here for a second because I have to. The next time somebody tells you to reject the lesser evils, show them exactly what Donald Trump is getting ready to do. Well, hell, we're going to have 4 years of seeing it. So just wait a minute. Don't show them yet. Show them in about 2.5 years when all this stuff takes place, and see how they're feeling about whether or not there really is a such thing as a lesser evils. That's been my story all through the primaries, all through the general election. I'm sticking with it right now. Donald Trump is a moron. Donald Trump is dangerous. Donald Trump is appointing the absolute worst people to lead these agencies. And the only thing we can hope for is for his administration to collapse underneath the pressure of its own ignorance and bigotry. Caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, Ben, it's Jared from Downingtown.
Hey, Jared, how's it going, man? What's on your mind?
Pretty awful, actually. Preparing for the I'm not going to call it presidency. I'm going to call it Swamp Brainer in Chief. I'm still working on the nickname. I think how's that? Hopi Swampy working for you?
There you go.
Get it? Because it sounds like Hopi Chingy.
Yeah.
But anyway, Trump's going to ruin my family's life, basically. My younger brother, who's in the military, Special Forces, he wants to get out of there because he's scared that Trump's probably going to start another war.
Yeah.
Which he's still in there for 1.5 years, which is really bad. Unfortunately, I wish he could get out of there sooner. And unfortunately, you can't control presidential elections like that for military service.
Yeah.
Private Social Security is going to be privatized, so that's going to screw over me, my mother, brother, not my father, though, thankfully, because he's on it. Obamacare, I'm going to be dropped off my health care because of that, because I'm 24. The question about the Obamacare thing, I know this is a little bit off topic, well, kind of, but Sam Cedar has been talking about this a lot lately on the show. So, are they going to repeal the entire thing and just basically replace it with something that is shockingly even worse? So if they do that, and what I've been looking at is that it would, so there's like 20-something million that are still uninsured under Obamacare.
Yeah.
It would shoot up to about like 40-ish million. Mm-hmm. And under Trump Care, it would only insure like a million or something. That's what I've been seeing on statistics, just what I've seen so far on the internet. So if they did repeal Obamacare and replaced it with basically nothing, like if they did it right away, wouldn't that like lead to like them losing badly in the midterms? Like what is their plan again exactly?
Actually, that's a great question, man. Thanks for the call. I'll definitely address that. And actually, it was Sam Cedar who put me up on this, right? So the reality of it is if they get rid of Obamacare completely and in its entirety right away without an equivalent replacement, they lose 2018. That was my first premise. Sam Cedar blew that shit out of the water in like 2 seconds. He said, well, Ben, I can't even do a Sam Cedar voice, so let me not try. He said, what they're actually going to do is repeal it on day one and not allow it to take effect until 2019. That's what they're going to do. And actually, I covered that yesterday. So check out the clip from yesterday where I talked about that. All right. Let's see. 857-600-0518 if you want to join the conversation. All right. Let's talk about the other half of this climate conversation, because a lot of people are getting in on the stupidity of science denial. To the point where they're getting embarrassed by the Weather Channel. So, and actually I want to show a couple of images on your screen. So Breitbart.com ran an article describing basically doing what Breitbart does, basically saying that there's a trend of cooling happening, and that the scientists are icily silent, or some kind of weak pun. And actually, let me show it on your screen. Here's a tweet that was included in this conversation. This is from the Science, Space, and Technology Committee from the House of Representatives. They shared an article from Breitbart News saying global temperatures plunge, icy silence from climate alarmists, right? Because, all the scientists are doing are just trying to alarm people. They're just trying to scare you. So in this article, Breitbart actually referenced a scientist who works for the Weather Channel. She gives the weather, but she's also apparently she's a scientist. And so actually, I'm going to let her speak in her own words and give you her response to the idiocy of Breitbart. Let's take a listen in.
So last week, Breitbart.com published an article claiming that global warming was nothing but a scare and global temperatures were actually falling. Problem is, they used a completely unrelated video about La Nina with my face in it to attempt to back their point. Now, what's worse is that the U.S. Committee on Space, Science, and Technology actually tweeted it out. Here's the thing. Science doesn't care about your opinion. Cherry picking and twisting the facts will not change the future, nor the fact, note fact, not opinion, that the Earth is warming. So let's break it down. Their first claim is that global land temperatures have plummeted by 1 degree Celsius since the middle of this year, the biggest and steepest fall on record. Now, that was based on one satellite estimate of global land temperatures, not a consensus. And second of all, land temperatures aren't an appropriate measure. The Earth is 70% water, and water is where we store most of our heat energy. So when you look at sea surface temperatures and you combine that with land temperatures, you actually get a record high for November of 2016. Their second claim, it can be argued that without El Nino, 2014 to 2016 would not have been record warm years. Now, you're taking a look at the Arctic sea ice melting here in this video from NASA. When you actually normalize the data, aka take out the El Nino spike in temperatures, 2015 and 2016 still come in as the warmest years on record. So that brings me to claim number 3. Many think that 2017 will be cooler than previous years. Now, it is typical, yes, for temperatures to drop in a post-El Nino environment, but certainly not to record lows. If that claim was correct, we would have had global record lows all over the last century, and we haven't seen that since 1911. The last time we fell below the 20th century average was in 1976, and guess what? That was directly following the 1974-1975 strong El Nino. So next time you're thinking about publishing a cherry-picked article, try consulting a scientist first. And to all my fellow scientists out there, let's make the facts louder than the opinions.
Well, shit, dog. Kate Parker, where's my applause track? Kate Parker came with it. I mean, okay, so it's kind of a performance art thing, you know. You have to show passion with these idiots. So hats off to Kate for coming with the facts and delivering it in a way that's kind of just like a little bitch slap to Breitbart and to this committee from the House of Representatives, right? We have morons leading us. We have the Know Nothing Party leading us. We have the flat earthers of our generation leading us. And that puts us in a position where we have to, you know, we not only have to sound the alarm with science, we have to sound the alarm with proverbial bitch slaps on a regular basis. And so the Weather Channel wasn't quite done with them. This is part 2 of the Weather Channel's clapping, cucking of Breitbart. It's on your screen. It's a tweet from the Weather Channel. Note to Breitbart, the earth is not cooling. Climate change is real. And stop using our video to mislead Americans. You know you're doing bad. You know you're doing bad when the Weather Channel slams you like that. Now, unfortunately, all of that is really just performance. And hopefully enough people actually hear them to actually sway some opinions in a significant way. Otherwise, Breitbart's tactic and technique is effective. That's the sad reality, because all Breitbart has to do is the same thing that Republicans continuously do, and that is just muddy the waters and, you know, make it a wash. It's the same thing we saw Democrats do with Hillary Clinton and with Bernie Sanders. And with regard to race, you just throw in enough smears, throw in enough confusion, and it's a wash. Well, extrapolate that out from just a primary to focusing on the climate and the future of our planet, and you have an entire party and an entire media infrastructure that is willing to muddy the waters enough with, I don't think it's something confusing, but for people who may not pay attention on a regular basis, this could just confuse them enough to be apathetic, to be agnostic on climate change. So while I give my hat tip to the Weather Channel and to Kate Parker for coming with it, unfortunately, this technique by Breitbart is just enough to delay any significant progress, any meaningful progress whatsoever. And this is what we're fighting against every single day. It's the muddying of the waters to make people apathetic enough to say, and then have to wait until a disaster actually happens before we do something. But I guess because there's snow on the ground in Boston, you know, but anyway. All right, let's take the next caller. Caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, man, this is Bryce. So looking at all the pics of Trump and everything that's happened, I mean, he's making the Bush administration like Ivy grads. I mean, it's just, I just don't understand. Just the, you know, the we don't give a fuck attitude. We're just going to just rip apart the country for 48 years, and y'all can have it back. It's just astonishing to me. I just don't understand it. And what I mean is, I do understand, but what I don't understand is just how perplexed things can be on that. It just boggles my mind. But real quick point. What is your opinion, I guess, of 2020 and 2018, of what do you think, you know, will happen on the progressive front in terms of who we can vote in, who can be the next president, and who can kind of turn around the, you know, madness. And also, one quick question.
Yeah.
Do you think that a market crash that I believe is going to happen, do you think a market crash is going to derail Trump's administration? Because, you know, the country's going to be at a pretty free-for-all, and a lot of things that he would want to do, he might have to either put it on hold or he can't get accomplished because the country is, you know, in chaos, basically, in terms of financial markets.
Yeah, so great question, man. I'm glad you asked that. So here's honestly what's going to happen is they're still going to be able to get stuff done. You know, we like to go underneath this theory that if a major event happens, which it does underneath every administration, that is going to prevent the administration from getting their domestic policy accomplished, like 9/11 and with the economic crash of 2007, 2008. That may be the overarching theme of that presidency, but that doesn't preclude that administration from getting other stuff done. When you have Jeff Sessions, Scott Pruitt, DeVos, that's her name from now on, DeVos, Ben Carson, you have people who finally have power and position and the ability to destroy the agencies that they hate. I don't care what kind of crash it is. I don't care what type of international action that happens. They are going to, did I say Jeff Sessions? If I didn't, let me say it again. They are going to do everything they possibly can to rearrange America to match their wet dreams. And they have a wet dream of a conservative America that is focused solely on quote unquote Judeo-Christian values socially, on a quote unquote free market. And I'm doing quote unquote because their values are neither Judeo-Christian nor do they have an actual free market, but they're going to say that bullshit just so that they can get all the shit done that they want to get done. It's neither going to be moral or a free market. Sorry. But the point is, their heart's desire is to do nothing more than to completely finish undoing the New Deal and to make a world that matches their dystopic dream. To them, it's a fantasy, right? To them, it's a utopia, right? But to the average American, it's going to be quite a dystopic future, or dystopic, depending on who you ask. And depending on these Supreme Court picks, that's going to determine how long we're going to be stuck with this, because the Supreme Court picks are really the things that are going to stick with us for generations to come. That's all I'll say. I wanted to say that there's nothing that these people can do in 4 years that can't be undone in terms of like these cabinet appointees. That's not necessarily accurate. They can be undone, but probably at great expense, great hurdles. It's going to be very difficult to undo it. It can be undone, but I don't want to make it seem as though it's something simple to undo 4 years of idiocy. But those Supreme Court picks, that's what's going to stick with us for a generation. All right, let's jump to some other news. I want to talk about the the first Somali American lawmaker. She made a post on Facebook today that, well, you'll see why it's worth discussing, and it's highly disturbing, and lets you know exactly what America looks like. I'm not even going to call it Trump's America as much as it is just America, because these types of things happened before Trump. I do believe that people are more empowered now because of Trump, but I digress. So the picture that's on your screen, actually, no, let me get the picture on your screen, is Ilhan Omar, and I'm going to read it for you. You can read it on your screen. She said, in a post, she said, "I spent yesterday afternoon at the White House learning about policy ideas states could implement in areas I am passionate about. On my way to our hotel, I got in a cab and became subjected to the most hateful, derogatory, Islamophobic, sexist taunts and threats I have ever experienced. The cab driver called me ISIS, threatened to remove my hijab. I wasn't really sure how this encounter would end as I attempted to rush out of his cab and retrieve my belongings. I am still shaken by this incident and can't wrap my head around how bold being and becoming in displaying how bold there's a word I think she's missing. How bold being and becoming in displaying their hate towards Muslims. I pray this humanity I pray for his humanity and for all those who harbor hate in their hearts. And there's a picture of her on my screen. Again, this is Trump's America only to the extent that people are even more emboldened to be the way they probably always were. And that distinction actually matters. Let me tell you why it matters. Because I don't really care if you're a racist piece of shit. I care if you're a racist piece of shit who is so emboldened that you think that you can come at me stupid and sideways, right? That's the difference. If you want to be an ignorant, inbred, racist, redneck son of a bitch, that's your business. And I actually have no problem with it because this is America. You're free to be an incestuous son of a bitch. But if you feel so inclined and so empowered to come at me with your racism, that's a problem. And honestly, I think it would be highly disingenuous for someone to say that Donald Trump does not, at a minimum, make this crowd enthusiastic and make this crowd emboldened and make this crowd loud and proud. Have they always been here? Yes. Will they always be here? Yes. Which is why I'm not particularly one who there is no legislation that you could write to get rid of racism. There's the legislation that we can write to help expunge poverty, but there's really no legislation that you can write to get rid of the hateful hearts of men. So that's, was it here? Yes. Is it here now? Yes. Will it always be here? Yes. But is it always this brash and bold? No. And it ebbs and flows. There are times in our society where this type of bigotry is ashamed of coming out front and center. Clearly, that's no longer the case because they found their voice. They found their muse and they found their coattails to ride all the way to Washington, D.C. And that person is Donald Trump. Granted, she probably could have had this experience last week or before the election. She could have, but she didn't. She had it post-election, and this is Donald Trump's America. Fuck what you heard. 857-600-0518 to join the conversation. Let's take this next caller. Caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, this is Chris. I'm calling out of Sacramento, California.
Hey, how's it going?
Long-time listener. Going very well. Very long-time listener, first-time caller. I totally agree with everything you're saying about racism, and people are always going to be racist or, they feel more emboldened. But I kind of want to switch up a little bit and mention something that I haven't really heard anybody say about climate change. Just today in the news, I was looking and there's a 70-mile wide, 3,000-foot glacier that's breaking off of Antarctica. But the main thing that I hear is, let's save the planet, let's save the planet. I want to know your take as why is no one saying, let's save humanity, because the planet will be fine. I mean, yeah, it's going to be so hot,
Yeah.
but it's not the planet. The planet's going to be here, but the human race and every single species that needs to survive in a sustainable climate is going to be wiped off the face of the earth. So why are they approaching it as save the planet as opposed to save humanity or save the human race?
Wow, that's a great question. I never thought about that distinction as to, thanks for the call, why someone would say save the planet versus save humanity, because ultimately, you're right, the planet is, going to be okay, for the next few billion years, right? No matter, the planet will be here. The question is whether or not we'll be here. So maybe they should change the language and save the planet to save humanity. I don't know. I can't give the justification of why they wouldn't say save humanity. Sometimes I think it's just we're so far gone. I mean, there've been some climate scientists who have for years, for at least the last 10 years that I know of, have said that we've already gone past the point of no return. And part of me wonders if this is all just a cat and mouse game that Democrats and Republicans are playing, knowing full well we're already screwed. Or I'm hoping that that's my conspiracy theory and that I'm very, very wrong. I hope there is something that we can do to save humanity, and not, because the planet will be fine until, like Gary Johnson said, the sun expands and encompasses the entire solar system. Gary Johnson. All right, let's cover some more stories. So on the international front, I do want to speak a little bit about the battle for Aleppo that appears to be winding down, possibly and potentially. So the Syrian rebels in the surrounding area of eastern Aleppo, they were entrenched. They have called for a ceasefire and in order to evacuate civilians from the areas that they currently control. So the siege has lasted for months, but it doesn't look as though it's going to last a lot longer. Government forces, the Assad regime, they control about 75% of eastern Aleppo. That area was held by rebels for about 4 years. The rebels who have been left with just a spit of land northeast of the citadel after recent government advances, but they abandoned it on Wednesday morning, retreating further south. At least 15 people were killed overnight as heavy artillery fire battered the remaining rebel-held areas. But there's a quote from Aleppo Leadership Council that I want to read for you. It says, quote, "Civilians should be either protected or evacuated to a safe area where they will not be under the mercy of Assad and his henchmen." So what they're requesting in the ceasefire is an immediate 5-day humanitarian ceasefire, an evacuation of 500 cases requiring emergency treatment underneath UN supervision. They're asking for an evacuation of civilians to the northern Aleppo countryside, and they are asking for negotiations for the future of the city. The truth of the matter is that the rebels are not really in a strong position to actually make demands. The U.S., Britain, Germany, Italy, France, and Canada jointly call for an immediate ceasefire. So while the rebels are not in a position to make demands, this coalition of louder and bigger voices, they're asking for this ceasefire as of today to quote unquote allow the United Nations to get humanitarian assistance to people in the eastern Aleppo. On a conference call today, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov described all the remaining rebels in eastern Aleppo as terrorists, saying that they had united around the jihadist group formerly known as the Al Nusra Front. So it's coming to an end. It looks as though the Assad regime is going to take Aleppo, and it looks as though the rebels, without the requests and the cries from these major powers and the U.S. a superpower, they're not in a position to make any requests. They're not in a position to extract any concessions from the Assad regime. And so we'll see how much longer this lasts. We'll know how, if this ceasefire actually takes hold, if people are actually evacuated. But the sum total of the story is at least the Battle of Aleppo that has been raging on for 4 years. Some of the most graphic images that we've seen have come from Aleppo. Everyone remembers the picture of the boy who was shocked and stunned, covered with dirt and blood because of the bombing. We know about the civilian hospitals that are being bombed. At the end of the day, it looks like it is almost over, and the city is going to be recaptured completely by put back underneath the control of the Assad regime. 857-600-0518 if you want to join the conversation. A couple of other stories because it's been that kind of busy of a day. I want to talk about Donald Trump's son-in-law and his media company, The Observer. Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who is part owner of The Observer. There was an article written by an opinion columnist at The Observer who called for an FBI investigation into the, quote, political thuggery of anti-Trump protests taking place in the wake of the presidential election. So the article was from last week, right? But I didn't cover it, so I'm going to cover it now. Most importantly, because this is connected directly to a person who has been requested to receive top secret security clearances. So you have essentially a media organization that is a direct, besides Breitbart, you have now The Observer that is directly connected to the White House, to Donald Trump's White House. So the op-ed calls for Director Comey to investigate the, quote, violence and political thuggery that continue to mar the presidential elections, the aftermath. This includes a crackdown on protests and a thorough investigation into whether protest efforts have, quote, ties to organizations demanding vote recounts. Okay. In the op-ed, it says, quote, the hard left's violent reaction to Donald Trump's election is vile and dangerous. Peaceful protests, no, the demonstrators vandalize and destroy. Okay, I gotta stop there. Because I don't think anybody out there protesting for a recount is a part of the hard left. Whatever the hell, however the hell you define the hard left. If you want to make it seem like we're the boogeymen, we're the Marxist, communist, socialists, then I guarantee you not a single Marxist, communist, or socialist is out there demanding a recount. That's just going to be my bet. I would put money on it. Not much of a betting man unless it's Texas Hold'em, but I would put money on it that there's not a single hard left person out there, but I digress. I don't want to crucify them on that piece of prose. It also says, quote, the mainstream media outlets have coddled and excused the demonstrators the same way they coddle and excuse violence by Black Lives Matter. What the hell is wrong with these people, man? These people are so... yes, I'm going to use... They are so... Actually, no. Deplorable is not a sufficient enough word. Deranged. They are deranged and deplorable. They are deranged with the political desire to control every facet of our lives with their narrative. Not just to control us, but with their narrative. With the narrative that there's nothing wrong in America except for the people complaining about America. The narrative that everything wrong with America comes from the left of America. The narrative that there's no such thing as white supremacy. Black people are just complaining. You see how they seamlessly intertwine all of their big boogeyman villain into one little piece of shit article? But there's more. They say, quote, Jill Stein. Actually, I'm not even going to read this quote. Never mind. Forget it. Anyway, it talks about Jill Stein and the recount. It's not as important as everything else has already been said. You could go read it yourself at theobserver.com. So here's the deal. Here's the take. Here's my hot take. The hot take is this. They only want freedom of speech if it's their speech. They only want the right to protest if it's protesting for something they believe in and not something that they oppose, right? This is clear, right? We've already made that distinction many times on this show that they feel that America belongs to them and that the Constitution is only valid for them, right? That's why they value the Second Amendment so much, but let a black person or a black organization like the Black Panther Party, the original Black Panther Party, take up arms. They're willing to undermine that Second Amendment because America is not for black militants. It's not for leftists. It's not for people who believe in anything but laissez-faire capitalism, which most of the people on the right can't even fucking spell. But the point is still the same. Anyone who doesn't fall into their capitalistic Judeo-Christian value set is the enemy. They are not entitled to the same rights and privileges, because if they were, you wouldn't write a piece of crap article like this saying that the FBI should investigate the protesters and leveling everything, reducing everything that happened. Like, personally, I don't really care about I already said that, the people who's still protesting. Let's start there. Is there anybody still protesting as of last week? Because if you are, please go home. If you're protesting for a recount, like if you're protesting in general for, speaking out against Donald Trump, fine. But if you're protesting for a recount, please go home. It's over. Donald Trump is the president. But even though I'm like, y'all need to go home and sit down somewhere, they have every bit of right to be out there just as much as anyone else. But this type of writing is particularly nefarious, not only because of the positions that they espouse, but because of the connection that they have to the incoming president. And the propensity and not the propensity, but I guess propensity will work. The propensity that Donald Trump has to suppress the media, to use his bully pulpit to try to silence the media. So this type of writing is they're free to write it, but it carries a little more, I don't want to say significance, but a little more concern. There's a little more concern with this article, with articles like this coming from a company that's owned by Donald Trump's son-in-law, especially because that son-in-law is going to be seated right in the White House with Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is too lazy to read his own security briefings. So he's gotten his son-in-law, he's requested his son-in-law get a top secret clearance so that he could read the briefings for him. America, 2016. All right, on the other front, I have to talk about these Democrats for a second. These people, man, I don't know what I'm going to do with them. Probably nothing. All right, on your screen is Elijah Cummings. I forgot where he represents. Doesn't matter. What matters is this ridiculous thing that he said today. And I call it ridiculous because I see let him talk for himself.
First, experts agree that there is overwhelming evidence that Russia interfered with the 2016 presidential election. Overwhelming. It's not disputed. It's overwhelming. Our nation's 17 federal intelligence agencies say that they are confident that Russia directed these cyber attacks and that they were intended to interfere with the U.S. election process. Let that sink in.
Let what sink in? That you have regurgitated the same talking point that Hillary Clinton gave during the debates. These 17 if this is the same exact report that and I can't tell you, right? I can't tell you whether or not it is, because he's up here saying that there's overwhelming evidence, but didn't provide us a damn link, didn't provide us a single footnote, didn't provide us anything to go and see this evidence for ourselves. So I have to make the assumption that he's referring to the 17 intelligence agencies that Hillary Clinton referred to, which was really not 17 agencies as much as the individual who is over those 17 agencies. The collection of those 17 agencies said that they firmly believe that Russia had something to do with the hack, the DNC hack, the Pedersen emails hack, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Here's the problem I have with this. You're using this official capacity. You're using this serious tone, the serious intonation to present this as an official problem of the United States of America. And by presenting it in that fashion, you have given the overtones of a potential conflict with Russia. Same exact thing that we had in the election. And where you would have thought this would have died out, no, Cummings is bringing this back to life without offering us and giving us the benefit of the doubt, thinking that we're smart enough to look at the evidence and come to the same conclusion that you came to, Representative Cummings. Because we've seen this before. We've seen the wagging of the dog so efficiently that it got us into Iraq. And I mean, and let's be real, like the Bush administration worked hard as hell so that they could have the Iraq war. This is just lazy. This is lazy, Representative Cummings. If you want a conflict with Russia, you're going to have to do a lot better than that. I mean, you got to get somebody in the New York Times to write a piece so that you could cite the piece that was written by the New York Times and say experts say, when in fact you actually fed. You remember what the Bush administration did with the New York Times? You got to at least do that. Like, you got to come with the yellow cake vial. You got to come before, you got to do a lot more than just recite the same thing that Hillary Clinton said during the debates. And then to what end, right? To what end? What are you trying to get out of this? Are you trying to punish Russia? Now, let me put a caveat here. I personally think that any nation, if they could, would influence America in the most detrimental way they possibly could. Why the hell wouldn't they? We do it. This is just what we do in the international community. And the international community is dog eat dog. It's blood for blood, eye for an eye. It's like it's no holds barred. So I am under no illusion to think that Russia is some type of innocent bystander. But you've got to bring us some evidence, homeboy. Yes, I refer to him as homeboy. You got to bring us some concrete evidence that's verifiable by more than just your talking points. They've gotten lazy, man. Like, either that or they were never talented as the Republicans. Like, if you want to know how to get us into a war, go see George Bush's administration. They are very, very effective. I mean, Colin Powell's probably still for hire. Go holler at Colin Powell and get him to come in and show you, be a consultant and show you how to get us into a war. Because this tired talking point, man, if you don't have anything else besides that, then you literally just wasted your time. Now, if you do, I would be surprised, but I would be glad. And I think most of America will be glad to delve into this evidence, this irrefutable evidence, this unquestionable evidence that you say that you have. And then if it's that concrete, then everybody objectively should be able to come to the same conclusion that Russia was complicit in these hacks that I guess you feel brought us Donald Trump. But without the evidence, it didn't happen. Give us some screenshots or you're just lying. Caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question?
Hello.
Yep, you're live. Who's this?
This is Brianna. I'm from St. Mary's County, Maryland.
Thanks for the call. What's on your mind, Brianna?
I just called in. I agree with you on the whole Russia and Democrats and all. They got along from the Bush administration. Can we go back to Trump real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, it seems that, the Democrats have basically lost the House, the Senate, and the presidency for the next 4 years. Do we have to depend on the stupidity of the Republican Party and the Trump administration to basically for a backlash? Like, if their stupidity comes and biting them back in the ass. Like, if you try to privatize education, privatize Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, try to get rid of Obamacare, when that basically piss off a lot of Americans, and then them come back and just taking you out completely. Like, we have to depend on their stupidity to basically bring them down.
Basically, because otherwise they've got full control of everything. Yep.
And it looks like that's what's going to end up happening. So,
you don't think that? I mean, it's a possibility, right? I don't know. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt and not think that they are as dumb as they come off as being. But it's not even just about being dumb, right? It's also about ambitious. They're ambitious. and they are so eager to get certain things accomplished that it's very likely they're going to make some mistakes and break some rules and bend some rules so that they can get their agenda accomplished. They're over eager. They're like the dog that's been chasing the truck, and they finally caught it, and they don't know what the hell to do with it. Sometimes the damn dog gets run over, and it's very possible that they're just so eager and ambitious that they will mess up. We'll see. If they don't mess up, then we have 4 complete years of a scandal-free Donald Trump administration where they're able to put all their policies into play. And that's actually the worst-case scenario. Thanks so much for the call, 857-600. I only have a few more minutes. I want to cover another story. I want to cover a little bit of Black Santa and Merry Christmas. Where should I start? Let's start with Corey Lewandowski. Let's start with Corey Lewandowski. He is an advisor, former CNN, whatever he is. But let's listen to how he's super duper excited that you can say Merry Christmas now that Donald Trump has been elected to president. Because before Donald Trump was elected president, you couldn't possibly have said Merry Christmas. Listen in.
But all the extra jobs that go along with that, which means a great Christmas, which you can say again, Merry Christmas, because Donald Trump is now the president. You can say it again. It's okay to say. It's not a pejorative word anymore. Yeah. The other thing is $50 billion and 50,000 jobs in the first 4 weeks. We continue down this path. We're going to have an increase in immigration to fill up all these jobs, and we're going to have too many in our own country.
Okay. So, I mean, I'll talk about what he was talking about everywhere else. I'll do that tomorrow because he was claiming that the first 4 weeks of Donald Trump's president-electhood has been better than the last 4 years of Barack Obama's term. No. We'll talk about that another day. I want to talk about this ludicrous assertion that always comes around this type of year, that somehow there is a war on Christmas and nothing else, right? This is from the same people who don't believe that racism is real. They don't believe that the LGBTQ community have anything to fight about. They don't believe that anybody has it. There's only one group of oppressed people in America, according to these people, and that's white evangelicals who can't say or can't force everyone else to say Merry Christmas. That's real oppression, not the Walter Scott mistrial. Not Dylan Roof running into a church and, well, not running, but sitting in a church and shooting 9 people. Not any other case that we've heard about these past 3 or 4 years. None of that is oppression. What's real oppression is the fact that you can't say Merry Christmas. So these people believe that there's more of a war on Christmas that starts in America before Halloween. Before Halloween, there's a Christmas channel in every city and every state. Before Halloween, there are decorations up at the freaking mall. Like, I mean, Christmas is like a 2-month extravaganza in the United States. But, so what it is actually, it's the need. They have this incessant need to be both the privileged group, but the oppressed group also. Because in a country that's ostensibly on the side of justice, the person that is oppressed has a narrative in America that is a competitive narrative that can be heard, that can, with years, hundreds of years, can actually get somewhere, right? So this idea that America is a just nation lends itself to the oppressed community because supposedly you can go from being oppressed to being unoppressed. And the right wing of America, they see the financial value of that, the political value, the political capital that they get from feigning oppression. So they got to be oppressed somehow. So that's how you get these Christian persecution people. This is how you get all these people who say that the white race is underneath attack. These are the same group of people who believe that our Judeo-Christian values are under attack. No, we're just saying that you can't impose your values on somebody else's life. But when you've been in a position of privilege for so long, of course, equality feels like oppression to you. But it's not just the fact that they feel oppressed. I think that they understand the political and financial privilege of being oppressed. And so they have to find some way of being both the oppressor and the oppressed. So they come up with this cockamamie war on Christmas every single year. Every year, like clockwork. You can guarantee that somebody feels like they can't go around and say Merry Christmas. Oh, God, help me. Why are my fellow Christians so lost? That's because they want to be lost. They are opportunistic. They don't really believe that there's a war on Christmas. Anybody who believes that there's a war on Christmas is not dealing with a full set. So if you believe that there's a war on Christmas, I need you to go get some mental evaluation. Now, that being, let's set that aside. I think it's just purely opportunistic for them to have something to feign like they are the oppressed, something to weave into this Christian persecution complex that they have because you don't have the right to stop a LGBTQ couple from getting married. Now, somehow that means your marriage is oppressed. It is a derangement. It is a sickness. It is a mental illness that they put on themselves. All because I don't know why the hell they do this. I mean, it's probably 101 reasons. I'm tired. I'm tired of trying to figure out idiocy. I'm tired of trying to be rational with irrational people. But that's just the first half of the story, right? So the first half of the story is like, okay, we all get to say Merry Christmas now because President Trump is in the office. Oh, okay, congratulations. All right, which takes me to the Mall of the America story. The Mall of the America story, as many of you, and I had to bring it back out. I didn't really discuss it too much, but the Mall of America's featured a black Santa for the first time. And the complaints and the comments and the vitriol that was spewed towards this, I mean, white people lost their damn minds. I was going to say they really do love arguing over fictional characters, but I don't believe that Jesus is fictional, but I leave that alone. I'll leave that for you guys to debate. But they love arguing over fictional characters like Santa Claus. They're literally upset because there's a black Santa. Wait a minute. Weren't you the same people who said that we shouldn't see color? Aren't you the same people who said that we should not put focus on identity and that race is just a construct, and that so if race is just a construct and we shouldn't focus on color, then why the hell are you mad at a black Santa? That's because the white supremacy is rich in these people. The white supremacy is strong with this group. Let me show you how strong it is. You guys remember this clip. This is Megyn Kelly. Listen in to Megyn Kelly.
It's so ridiculous. Yet another person claiming it's racist to have a white Santa, you know? And by the way, for all you kids watching at home, Santa just is white, but this person is just arguing that maybe we should also have a black Santa. But, you know, Santa is what he is, and just so you know, we're just debating this because someone wrote about it, kids. Okay, I wanted to get that straight.
She had to reassure these white babies at home, don't, like, okay, what 5-year-old is watching Fox News? I feel sorry for them already, but I digress. That's not the point. The point is, it's so important that Santa is white that she had to give a disclaimer. Megyn Kelly had to give a disclaimer before even having a conversation about having a multiracial ethnic Santa. So don't tell me for 1 second that race is not a thing, that race doesn't matter, that you're colorblind, and that you don't see color, Tommy Lauren, when your asses can't even handle a fictional character being played by a black man. God, what would you have done if it was a black woman? They would have lost their shit. All right, but I want to share this tweet because this tweet actually summed it up best. It's in here somewhere. Holy crap. Oh, there it is. There it is. On your screen. I can't see his name. It's so small. But this is what he said. He said, white people, quote, they say, I don't see color. I see people. Let's stop making everything about race. Okay. Mall of America says, let's have a black Santa. And then there's this glorious picture of the response from white people of a white woman screaming and crying for like Real Housewives of Atlanta. I can't describe it for the radio audience how brilliant it is, but go to my Twitter feed and you will see it. Like, this is how deep it really is in America. If you didn't care about race, then you should be 100% okay with Santa being played by a black man. Matter of fact, you should be okay with replacing all of the images of Jesus in your churches with a black Jesus. And if black is too much, if a black socialist Jesus is too much for you, then at least get a more accurate depiction of a Middle Eastern Jew versus the Brad Pitt Scandinavian white Jesus, if race didn't really matter. But clearly, race means everything to these people. I think that's enough for tonight. See you guys next time.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. It's Ben Dixon! If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Stay there.
Consider becoming a Patreon.
Don't go nowhere.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
I'm not going anywhere yet. Thanks to Wayne Perkins for reminding me of one last story that I have to do. Hang on. Let's start here. One last story I need to do is a semi shout out to Charlamagne the God. But Charlamagne the God got into some shit on Twitter. Let me start with the real. Let me start with keeping it 100. Charlamagne the God asked the question on Twitter. He asked two questions. He said, one, where are the black media outlets like the Young Turks, and why can't he find them? Essentially, hey. Everybody's not deep on YouTube like everybody else. I'm gonna leave that particular question alone because ultimately it led all of my followers who follow Charlamagne the God to tweet him and say, dude, have you not heard of the Benjamin Dixon Show? So shout out to everyone who sent Charlamagne the God clips of me. He subscribed to me on YouTube. Welcome aboard, Charlamagne. Glad to have you. Check us out. He asked the question, what can we do to amplify these voices? Now, I'm going to get to the drama that he got into in a second, but let's talk about the important stuff for me. I'm going to be selfish as hell right here. What we can do is to give access, right? There are people in the game who have access that the rest of us are fighting tooth and nail to have. Me, Tim Black, just a list of, I'm just trying to think of all the black progressives. Anoa Changa, of course. I can go down my network by itself. Anoa Changa, Brandon Sutton, Nicholas Nolan. There's those of us who are out here killing it in the game. We just don't have access, but we are paying for this out of our pockets and my patrons. Thank you, patrons. We love you. But we're doing it, we work our regular jobs and we come and do this. We do it because we love to do it. We're good at doing it. And we know that we could be doing this for the rest of our life and getting paid for it. So what do we need? We need access, we need distribution, and we need capital. Anything short of that is not helping us, right? Case in point, Glenn Greenwald. The other day, he subtweeted me, and told people to follow me. And I woke up in the morning 30 minutes after he tweeted that and had 1,000 new followers on Twitter, right? So that's access, right? That's access to your audience, access to your halls of power. That's what we need. if you want to see more of us, then we need people with platforms like yours to give us that kind of access. We need distribution. I mean, there are people who literally can click publish and disseminate our information to 20 million people. We need distribution, and with distribution comes a cut, right? Because, you know, I don't ask for nothing for free, so I'm not going to ask you of nothing for free. And we need capital. We need investors, like straight up. We need investors. So if you want to know how to amplify Black progressive voices and progressive voices in general, that's how we can do it. But thanks for subscribing to me. Thanks for tweeting me out to your 1 million followers. That was a big deal. We crossed 14,000 subscribers today or yesterday. So big shout out to all of you. Last but not least, Charlamagne the Guy got into it with Black Twitter because he asked the second question, asking why he basically said he would love it if there was some woke liberal women of color who would do what Tomi Lahren did on social media. And, well, I'm a little, I'm more interested in connecting. I'm more interested in the network. So, I didn't take offense to my question, but I definitely can see how all the Black women and women of color who are doing that thing, they could get a little heated. But I'm going to step out of that conversation because you would notice I get into a lot of Twitter fights, but the Twitter fights I'm not getting into because I just don't have any point of reference is the Twitter fight between Black women and Black men. I have no point of reference because I'm married to a beautiful Black woman, strong Black woman, successful Black woman. I mean, super successful Black woman, and we get along pretty good. So nobody wants to hear me brag about that on Twitter. So that's why I don't get into the Black woman versus Black man argument. And I'm not getting into it tonight. Good night.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
You're now about to witness the truth.
it's the Benjamin Dixon Show.